I have the gracious opportunity to introduce to you a couple of my friends. A lot of you guys know these two. They're best friends. How long have you guys been best friends for?
Like a year.
Yeah.
You don't know the date?
It's a new relationship.
It is.
It's new?
It's fresh.
It's
We're
fresh.
in honeymoon stage.
Wow.
Still.
That's amazing. You're still in the honeymoon phase.
Infatuated.
They're a lot looser than they were in the United already. This is good.
Oh, yeah.
This is gonna be a good time for sure.
Not joking. Stuff should be illegal.
Yeah, and I want to, if you guys are wondering
And we have
why
nitros.
I'm taking my lid off, it's because two people, foreign lips, drank out of my cup, and I didn't appreciate it, so just a heads up.
Wow.
You guys keep wondering why I take my lid off.
Did you see it? Or was it what you were told?
Yeah, it was in front of me, but I didn't want to be rude and say they couldn't drink it.
I would have told them straight up.
Drink it, sorry.
I would have told them, like, get your lips off my drink, bro.
Yeah.
That's where we're different, but we complement each other really well.
Yeah, we do.
Why don't you guys tell everybody a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, where'd you go to school, interesting fact about yourself. Seth, you have a water bottle in your mouth. You may as well go first.
This thing's crooked, so.
Yeah,
you can go first.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, you can go first if you want.
Come on.
So I'm originally from Barberton, Ohio. I grew up there. Is there people from Barberton in here? Anyone? Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, I see.
Al, from Barberton.
The one kid that was from out of state that I know of is raising his hand. Love you, Alan.
I grew up there till I was 18. I went there at school till I was in 7th grade and then transferred to Doylestown, Ohio, Chippewa. From 8th grade to till I graduated. Lived in Parma for about 3 years after I graduated, and then recently in 2016 moved to Doylestown back home. So that's kind of what brought me around the area and stuff. And
what was that interesting fact that you shared with us in the United? I think everyone would love to hear it here.
Yeah, so I think I was encouraged to share a different one, to be honest.
Wow,
I
you felt led in a different direction.
Vulnerable tonight, yeah. I think.
Come on.
I think I'm gonna be a little bit more transparent.
This is from the Lord for whatever he says.
Oh, yeah,
so.
absolutely. So earlier I shared just a little brief story. My mom was like, oh, like when you were little, like everybody had to have Jacob insurance because you destroyed everything. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll share that. And really nobody laughed at all. It wasn't really funny. So I figured I'd share something different.
Tough crowd.
A little bit more interesting. When I'm nervous, oh, come on. Oh, yeah. When I'm nervous
you're getting
or
intimate now.
On edge, I'll rub silk. So
Silk?
Anywhere that I could rub silk in between my fingers. So if I have a tag on my shirt.
Get this man some silk.
Oh yeah, for sure. If I have a tag on my shirt or something, if you ever see me, if I have basketball shorts on, I'll rub the inside of my shirt or shorts while I'm listening to people talk. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God.
It's like a coping mechanism.
I'm gonna watch that now.
It's weird. But I figured I'd share that.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. That was a great fact. I didn't even know that. Seriously, can we get him some silk?
I'm glad you shared the silk story. It's my favorite one. Yeah, it is.
Best friend moments.
Well, we were going to Cleveland, and
is it story time now?
I'm sorry. No, we were getting ready to go to Cleveland, and he takes a long time to get ready to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I'm like, dude, we gotta go.
I'm totally embarrassed right now.
We gotta go. Hey, I'm sorry, but we're about to walk out the door, and he's like, hey, hold on 1 minute. He comes downstairs, he's got a pair of basketball shorts in his hand. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? What? He's like, I don't know, I just get nervous in the car, so I just rub them. I'm like, oh, no.
Did you take him in the car with you?
Car.
Did you take him with you? It's a better question.
I did.
You did? Say it into the microphone.
I did.
There we go. Wow. Seth, where are you from?
I'm from right here, actually. Born and raised, Stark County. I lived everywhere in Stark County. Moved 8-9 times, but never went far. Went to Perry for a little bit. Went to Catholic school for a couple years. Then went to Tuslaw in 5th grade. And then from 6th to 12th grade, went to Jackson. So I've had a little bit of all the different experiences, a little bit of the four corners of Stark County. But after high school, I went to the Air Force and actually left the same night that my buddies were going on senior trip. I was going to basic training. So they were calling me, they're all hyped up and, oh, dude, wish you could be here, this and that. And I was on a bus getting ready to pull into Lackland Air Force Base. And fortunately, I wasn't there because that night they all got arrested. and 2 of them got sent back to Ohio. But God's plan, whatever.
God's plan.
But
Come on, Seth.
no, but unbeknown to me, 3 months later, they find out I have a heart condition, and I'd be sent home from the Air Force, and kind of reset my whole journey and my whole walk with God, really, from that moment on. And that's kind of where the story, well, it takes an interesting turn, but we'll go back a little bit, I guess.
That's cool. Yeah, it's awesome. Interesting fact? Anything you want to share?
I guess I'll share the first one I shared.
Yeah, that's cool.
So when I was in
Go
3rd
ahead.
grade, our school was 1st through 8th grade, Catholic school. And I had like 17 people in my class. I think there was maybe like 200 people in the whole school. But we had a spelling bee, and I was in 3rd grade and went all the way through 8th grade. And somehow or another, I managed to win the whole school spelling bee when I was in 3rd grade.
Come on.
Felt bad for all them 8th graders, but
Glory.
yeah.
And obviously, oh wow, there were my keys. We're not going to worry about that. And obviously, with the school spelling bee, man, you didn't even take names, because when all you do is win, it doesn't really matter who you're beating, right?
Yeah. From that point forward, yeah.
From that point forward, at least.
It was different.
Sure, things were a little different, shaped up a little bit differently than you had anticipated. Yeah. But aside from all of their personal stories, we're excited about what they have to share tonight. And just kind of the heart of the series. I don't know if there are a lot of new people in here tonight or not, but if you are newer, thank you for coming out. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to be here with us. And whether you believe what we believe or not, we really believe that you belong here before you ever believe what we believe. And we're really excited and thrilled that you decided to take some time out of your schedule again to be here with us. But kind of the whole rhythm and flow with why we even brought Storytellers to the surface is we really do believe that in our lives individually, there's an accumulation of different seasons, and life is lived in seasons. Seasons change, seasons go. There's always going to be a changing of seasons, whether you want it to or not. Whether you're in a good season and you don't want it to change, or you're in a bad season, you're like, I just want this to change right now. We all find ourselves in seasons and peaks and valleys. And the reality is, obviously we all find ourselves in storms and struggles, whether we want to or not. And it's inevitable. You can't avoid or evade storms. You can't avoid or evade conflict or pressure or tension. It's just the reality. We're always going to find ourselves in seasons where they're just a little more challenging. But I think it is cool how, oftentimes the problem isn't the problem itself. It's our perspective of the problem. And when our perspective of the problem is, it's just a setup in the stronghold, which I believe for some of you, you haven't even been set free yet, but tonight you are going to be. I believe that with my whole heart, that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And the moment that the word is preached and preached with conviction, that even if you're not incorporating words of scripture or verses, the moment that the word is preached from your own heart, and anyone, whether it's us three or it's Josh, whomever it is, that the Spirit of the Lord is present and hearts will be changed. And so I believe that if you're here and you're like, man, my story hasn't even started yet. I don't even feel like I have a great story. I don't even feel like God's done anything in my life yet. Just wait. He'll meet you, and he moves in moments. And there's moments throughout our lives that we can look back to. And for those of us who can say, yeah, God's redeemed us of some of our pain and some of our struggle, we can say with confidence that there was a moment, or there were certain moments that categorized a season that looked like a change or a transition in our lives, that God revealed his goodness and his glory to us for the first time in our lives. And the reality is, we believe that your story is so significant. And whether it's been rewritten yet or not, we believe that tonight could be your night. And we do think also that some of the stories and the testimonies that we've heard from some of the people that we've had speak, it's so special and it's so significant. It's so unique, because these are the specific instances and moments that God reveals himself to his children, to our brothers and sisters, to people that we would walk alongside every single day. This is what God's doing in your life personally. And there's nothing greater than understanding and realizing that God wants to be in your life individually and specifically. And he wants to and desires to rewrite your story. And if you feel like, again, your story hasn't been rewritten yet, if you came in, you're like, man, my story's good and I don't even know God. I don't want to know God. That's great. Honestly, that's great. I would just encourage you to listen to what some of these guys have to say. And I really do think that you're going to be encouraged in your heart, because again, God's done something really special in their lives, and it'd be wrong of us to not hear and not receive the things that have happened in their lives individually. But I think that you're going to be encouraged just like I was the first time that I heard it. So Jake, I have a question for you, man.
Yeah.
What did the storm and struggle look like in your life individually?
So I'm going to answer the second one first, the struggles. I like kind of said this earlier, but like I think oftentimes when we share a struggle and a testimony, it's often like, oh yeah, dude, I struggled with females, and then like the guy sits there and talks to you about all the relationships that he had, and you know they were unfulfilling, or then you got a guy that talks about his drug addiction, or you know people are pretty specific with their area of struggle, and like I really prayed about that personally and individually, and I really believe that God exposed something that I never saw before, and it was simply an identity crisis.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, like there was nothing, everything that I was doing was a result of not knowing who I was. You know what I mean? And like from the age of 14 to 21, I didn't know who I was. I couldn't even look in the mirror and tell you who I was. I didn't know. I was whoever I was around, to be honest. And I think at such a vulnerable age, you know, especially when you get into a group of people where things start to shift and society tells you what to be. Right. And in like 8th grade, you go in and you're kind of like, for me, I was kind of like, man, I'm happy with who I am. I went into a new school and I was kind of like the new kid on the block. But then I realized that I wasn't good enough. Like what culture, what society was telling me is like, you dude, if you have sex right now, you're super cool. So like by the time I was 14, you lose your virginity, and that's not enough. So by the time you're 15, you have a pain pill addiction, and that's not enough. And then by the time like you're 16, you can't get out of that pain pill addiction. You know what I mean? Like those things that you constantly find yourself getting into is really a result of not knowing who you are. Right. Yeah. Nobody really wants that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's miserable. It's a pretty rough life, you know, but I think honestly, when I think of my struggle, it was really an identity issue. It was never really a specific. It was just not knowing who I was, you know, at the time.
Right. Yeah, that's really good, man. So as far as like the whole identity thing too, obviously whenever we're not identifying ourselves with Christ, it means that we're identifying ourselves with something else. Absolutely. Or another person, you know, whether it's a relationship, maybe you're imposing the identification and who you are according to who you're with, or whether it's something you do. Something that you've received. You know, there's different things that we can kind of plug into the identification box, so to speak. And I think that it's crucial that we identify some of those things that vie for our identification. And so what were some of those things for you, man, that kind of like stole the source of identity in your life that you constantly were like wrestling with? You're battling the tension of identification. And what did those look like for you personally, though?
I think as far as like what stole my identity from like originally who I thought I would.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say more than anything, who I was around was a huge impact. Who I surrounded myself with, who I felt comfortable being around. You know, it's like one of those things where you're around a crowd of people, and I think like college is so awesome because you're graduated now and you're no longer the athlete. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people hit that crisis moment when they graduate because it's like, well, I'm no longer the star on the basketball court. You kind of hit a point where you're like, I don't know who I am anymore. And it's like a vulnerability. It's like I can talk and people actually listen, you know? It's like just soft hearts, you know, because people are in a humble position to just be open to discuss things. And I think really that was the biggest thing for me more than anything, was just who I was around and
sure.
my relationships and stuff.
That's good. Yeah, and obviously, like, a good thing can quickly become a bad thing when we make it the foundational thing. There's only one true foundation we can find and should have and establish, and it's Jesus. And whenever we miss that or misappropriate it, then we're putting ourselves in a situation or position where we are going to find ourselves confused, questioning, but also really frustrated, wondering why we can't find our identity or our source of foundation in something that will actually sustain us and give us life. And I think that's where we find ourselves individually. At least a lot of us find ourselves in at one point in our lives. I know I did for sure. Yeah. But that's really good, man. Seth, what about you, bro?
Well, as far as the storms go and the struggles, it was more of a double life kind of thing. You know, like what I thought I wanted for myself and what God had for me were two different lifestyles. So, you know, you grow up in a family that's rooted in faith, and you're in a good church and you're involved frequently, and, you know, it's like, for that portion of the week, you're that guy. And it's good, but the other 6 days of the week, you're trying to be cool enough or good enough to fit in with the people that consume 90% of your week. So for me, it was tough going in on Wednesday and really being able to build a strong relationship with the Lord, because the majority of the time I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I think there was always a conflict between what I knew I should be doing and the consciousness of that, in contrast to me just blatantly disobeying and doing my own thing anyways. And it really pulled me down a path that wasted a lot of precious time.
Yeah.
Thank God I am where I am today to be able to, have this opportunity to speak and all that. But I do often think about the days that I could have been spending more effectively in contrast to what I was actually doing.
Sure. Yeah, it's good, man. And so obviously, like, hearing both of those, that's obviously a struggle and a storm that they walked through. But I think it is cool how, like, on the other side of both of these stories, there's truly redemption to be seen. And so I just wanted to ask both of you, what did the process of redemption look like in your situation?
I'm going to share the same thing that I did earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was curious because, like, I'm not super smart. I don't know words right off the top of my head. So, like, I wanted to look up the definition of redeem or redemption. And I thought the definition was so powerful. It was literally to take back ownership of something by paying a specified sum. So, like, to take back ownership of something in order to pay something off. And, like, in my life, I believe that, like, the biggest sacrifice that I made was I was in a 4-year relationship with a girl that I had started dating in high school and was engaged by 21. And I was miserable. I was literally miserable, like unhappy. And I started to think maybe this isn't right after I've already committed, and like I said earlier, like, it's one thing to, like, have a certain decision that, it's not, like, huge and you got to make a decision. But, like, when you're spending the rest of your life with someone potentially, reality hits. It's a smack in the face, And so I just got to a point where I was sitting in my living room and I was, like, crying out to God, basically, in a sense. And I went up to my room, closed my door, locked it, and just opened my Bible. And I believe that, like, in that moment of just having an open heart with God, he really penetrated my heart in that moment, and I got to read his word and really just felt a breath of fresh air. Yeah. It was like really the first time that I just took a sigh and was like, everything is okay. You know what I mean? Wow. And from that moment on, just having that experience, I wanted to make sure that I, like, committed that to my day-to-day basis, because I was like, dude, that is so amazing. Like, I just felt so good, Yeah. And so I really just continued to read every day and just allow God to kind of enter into my life. And, it took a while for sure. Like I said earlier, like, it took about 2 months for me to really make the final decision of saying, you know what, this can't work. This won't work. Like, I think the best thing, honestly, for me is to move on and for you to move on. And God has seriously done amazing things from that decision. And, like, I can't tell you enough how you take one simple step of obedience, you will experience freedom you've never experienced.
Right. Yeah, amen.
I promise you. You will experience things that you've never experienced, and it will be the hardest decision of your life. I promise you. It's going to be difficult. But once you step out in faith and you make that decision, the weight off your shoulders is unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's really good, man. That's really good. I love how you said that every day there were just little things that you did. And I really believe this to be true, that you can look at great leaders. You can look at a lot of individuals that are doing great things for God. You can look at a lot of people that are very successful. You can instantly assume that they just made one decision. It's like, well, they just made one decision, and that was kind of like the golden ticket for them. But the reality is that it's the byproduct of a lot of little decisions and choices daily that we make that produce significant results in the future. That's the reality. And so for you found yourself in a season where you had that moment with God, and there was a moment that he moved in your life. And from there were just little things you did daily. What were some of those little things that you did daily, man? I think that we'd all love to, like, hear a little bit about that and just expound on that a little bit more.
Yeah. So honestly, I really made it an effort, because at the time I was working a job. I was like 5 to 1. And I literally looked forward to coming home from work and just spending time with God. I was like on a spiritual high. I had never experienced anything like that, And don't take for granted the effort that you give God, because he sees it.
That's great.
Like,
That's good, man.
Don't think that for one moment you're here at 10:35 p.m. on a Wednesday night in the middle of the week during a work week. You guys are in school. You guys are busy. You're here.
Yeah.
Like, don't think for 1 minute God doesn't see that. Like your effort is so incredible, and God sees that, and He's diligent to move in that, and the seed has been planted, and He'll water it. You know,
that's great. I think it's cool how like over the course of that time, then while you're making those little decisions, as you continue to starve the one thing that was trying to vie for your attention constantly, but feeding yourself the one thing that you knew was actually going to grow you in the direction and take you in the course that you desire to go.
Yeah.
As you continue to starve it, eventually, because I think oftentimes we find ourselves in seasons where we're like, oh, people have instant change or instant shifts in their life. And it's like, well, I don't feel like I have that. Right. But I'm telling you, as you continue to do little things like that, because I really do believe that you just starved that continuously. Right. And as you starved it, but continued to feed yourself just a little bit here and there, every day, over the course of time, you saw like the true change take place. That's like really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that honestly, like all of us in our lives at some point, whether it's a more like monumental and pillar and staple moment of our lives where like something's really changing and shifting, or it's just a little thing, man, that's like such a testament to continue to starve the things that are trying to vie for our attention. It's really good, man. Seth.
Well, I think, the biggest point of progress that I was able to make was just starting to give 100% with everything that I did. I had always done just enough to get by. You do just enough relationally. You just do just enough spiritually. And it's just never enough. I mean, we are called to such a great commission, and it requires your entire life. And as long as you're doing it half-heartedly, you're not going to see the fruit in your life that you want. Yeah. And it took me a lot of times. I mean, I would go and get on these spiritual highs and be really involved and go see something amazing or go to a conference or, see miracles happen. And it's like you tell yourself over and over again, I'm not going to go back to the way I was before. I'm not going to do it. I'm done, And then 4 or 6 weeks later, you're back doing the same thing.
Sure.
And to grasp that understanding that there is new grace every day. For the bad decisions that you are bound to make sooner or later. I mean, I chased perfection thinking the Lord will only accept me as a steward of His word if I'm perfect.
Wow.
And I chased a standard that was literally beyond reach for any human being.
Wow.
And for the duration of time that I was chasing perfection, every time I'd fall short, it'd pull me right back into the stuff. The shame of it would pull me right back into the stuff that caused the shame in the first place.
Huh. Yeah, that's good.
So I was spinning my wheels, just going different directions, wasting time and wasting my breath. Doing stuff to fill a void that I knew all along could only be filled by a relationship with the Lord. And honestly, that's what it is. I mean, to ditch all religion and have a relationship with God,
that's great.
That's what transcends
that's good,
all
man.
the understanding. I mean, seriously.
absolutely.
That's great.
A lot of individuals who grow up in a church and actually be pushed away by the principles and the rules and the harshness and the judgment. And when you discover that love that God has for you, a love that was designed to take the place of the sin that you're going to commit.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. That's when you start to live to your full potential. That's when it's easy to give 100%. I mean, I showed up in this parking lot 3-4 years ago when the U was still once a month. Showed up, it was a week that it wasn't going on. I was ready to come in, I was ready to get back into it. But it was only the United that night. And everybody was walking out. They were closing up. I was like, oh, what's up? When's the college service starting? They said, no, that's not this week. Didn't come back. I had made a decision then that I was going to come in and go down a certain path and say, this is enough. But I allowed the embarrassment, I guess, or just something to fill that spot. Instead of just coming back when it was going on, I went back to what I was doing prior.
Yeah.
Years went by. I mean, sophomore, junior, senior year of schooling, hanging out, doing whatever. And up until last year, I didn't come back. Yeah. But a year ago, when I came back and made that decision to be here and get involved and build a support system around myself, I'd been trying to do it on my own for so long that I was just tired. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need some help. Realistically, my prayer life was good. My reading life wasn't good. I get my reading life right, my prayer life would suffer. I'm thinking, man, I need some help. Wow. Yeah. And the first step was just allowing a friend to bring me back out after the first experience that I'd had where I kind of felt stupid. And it led to every single individual that I've met here just pouring into my life in a way that I never thought possible. I mean, the friendship with Jake has been an absolute blessing. And with Austin and everybody else, I mean, it requires everything you have. But it's worth everything
That's
you
great.
could ever imagine. I
That's
mean,
great, Seth.
It's tremendous.
That's awesome. That's really good. So I love how with your story, it's just an opportunity to like, oh, that was great. Love. With your story, man, honestly, like it's just an opportunity to talk about it. And I wanted to bring it up at the United, and I want to bring it up again too. But for you and your story, I feel like there's so many people that can relate to it because I could relate to it personally. But you find yourself in a rhythm where you're constantly going up and down. There's constantly an ebb and flow. There's peaks and there's valleys, but you can never find stability and steadiness within your seasons, or steadiness or stability within your life personally, individually. It just seems like everything's a roller coaster. But the reality is, like, we don't have to live within the highs and the lows of life. Like, we can find steadiness and stability, and it's through Jesus. But where did that begin to change for you, man?
Man, I guess for me it started with the help from other people, honestly. Like, I found consistency in developing a routine, doing the right things, I guess. I mean, prior to that, it was like I showed up to Jake's Connect group the first night we had it, and I had plans to go out afterwards with my buddies from school, and I showed up at Jake's, and we ended up sitting there talking about, stuff that actually mattered until about 3 a.m, and just kind of lost track of time. And it's weird that I can trace it back to that, but from that moment on, the level of relationships that I had, not only with people, but with the Lord, went to a whole nother level. I mean, prior to that, it was like I was still doing it 50-50. I mean, if I'm honest, like, it took a good amount of time for me to really commit to the understanding that God had grace for the fact that I was still screwing up. Yeah. I mean, and I don't know, it's awesome. Really just about who you have around you.
That's awesome.
That's really good. Obviously, there's such an emphasis on community, and that's why we place an emphasis on community. Because I mean, it's good to come every single Wednesday and hear a message, hear teaching, and have time in praise and worship. But at the end of the day, what we need truly is relationship with each other, relationship with God first, but relationship with each other. That's why we've done certain things like implement U groups and have opportunities for more innate circles of community. And I would encourage you, if you're not a part of a U group, get into a U group. Like I'm not just saying it because I want you to be a part of what we're a part of, and I think it's great. I love what we do, and I think it is great. But at the end of the day, I just know that for me and for everyone located on this platform, and every single one of our leaders that you can talk to or have a conversation with, they would say that what they needed truly was community. You need people. Yeah. You need people in your corner. You need people in your life. You need people to walk alongside you. It's just the reality of being a human being. We've been created relationally. God created us this way. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. God created us relationally. Relationship with him first off, but then relationship with each other. Yeah. If you want to get into a U group, come and find one of the three of us. Absolutely. Come and find Devin. Come and find Caroline. We want to get you into a group, seriously, because there's such a value placed on it. And I've seen the value in my own life when I've been a part of groups. And I just know that there's something super profound that takes place within a setting where you can get real, transparent, raw. You can talk about the real issues and struggles of life with people that depend on you, people that care about you, people that want to continue to take the things that God's placed in you and pull them out of you. There's something to be said about it. So that's great, man. That's awesome. Do you guys have any other thoughts you want to add before we close up?
Yeah. I guess I was going to share, I had 3 things earlier that I was going to share, but it really was on my heart to kind of put those to the side for a minute. Surround yourself with people that are going to build you up.
That's great.
Stop surrounding yourself with people that are tearing you down.
Yeah, that's great.
Break that cycle tonight. Like, cheers. Yeah, for real. I mean, just surround yourself with people that are going to build you up, speak life into your situation. And I was going to say 3 things earlier, like have thick skin, have a soft heart, and know that your daddy loves you.
That's great.
Okay, for real. Like, that's good. Know that your father loves you. You know, and I think out of those things, surrounding yourself with the right people, they can remind you, hey, listen, God loves you. You know what I mean? Remind you and bring you to that place for sure.
That's good. That's great. What about you, Seth?
Yeah, I just got a couple of things really. One is that, wherever you go, you're not alone. I mean, even if you're going down the wrong path, God's with you either way. And I had a talk with my dad today, and he's like, the thing you need to understand is no matter where you go and what you do, God's with you either way. It's just a matter of how many detours you choose to take and how much time you choose to waste on the journey to where he's trying to get you. And, you know, it might be a 5-mile journey that takes you 500 miles because you made so many choices that just took you in opposite directions. And man, I'm just a living testimony of bad choices and wasted time. And but eventually, you know, you come back to where you're supposed to be. Now, granted, could I have done it when I was 18, 19? Yeah, sure. But the things I've learned in the process have been invaluable. And I know that, you know, they're going to be used for good sooner or later. And also just understanding that we're a work in progress.
That's great.
It's hard to get up here with the peer group that is literally in the same walk of life as you and be put in a position where you got to act like, hey, you know, it's finished and my story, you know, this is my story that I'm telling as if it's done. We're in the middle of this story.
Right. That's great.
We're just at the beginning of what God's doing in our life. We've been given the opportunity and the privilege to speak on the beginning of a trajectory that is literally boundless. Like there is nothing that can stop
It's great.
what God has for each and every one of us. I mean, we are literally babies in this journey. And I'm just excited to see what God has next, really.
Oh,
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
To see where he's taken me thus far, it's just such outrageous love.
Yeah.
Because we are undeserving of this seat. We're undeserving of these mics. I mean, really, if anything, the story should be getting told 10 years from now. But just understand that every single day there's a purpose for it. Just try and make the right decisions, and you know you're in the same boat as us. Really,
Yeah.
It's great.
It's no different.
Yeah, no doubt. Can we give it up to these guys and sharing everything that God's done in their lives? When you said daddy, were you referring to Seth? When you said daddy, were you referring to Seth?
I was not referring to Seth.
Seth smirked.
What?
When you said daddy.
You said daddy?
No, I told him not to say dad.
What'd you tell him to say?
Dad. And
He's
he
got to
was
say
like,
daddy.
I gotta say daddy. I'm like, that's weird.
Abba, Father, Daddy. I can't cut it short.
I don't think the Apostle Paul was like daddy.
Well, I'll use my imagination.
Whatever.